So this is the included landing strut for the model kit. It's not too bad. It's fairly strong actually. However, and while it's probably good for the normal kit, in my case I've got a lot of excess weight going on here, and there's only more to go on top of that as well, and all the excess weight under here too, even though some of this is about to be cleaned up, and the upper hull and so on. So I don't know that these struts are really going to hold all that well. They should be pretty good, but I want to make sure. To that end, over the years I've thought that I would probably build legs, but I never really knew how I would go about it. These days I do know how I'm going to go about it, and it's going to be with a bunch of aluminum and or brass stock. Probably brass with some aluminum, because brass is just a little bit stronger. Distinctly stronger than the plastic, much stronger than the aluminum, which I would say is also stronger than the plastic. Though the plastic itself is pretty strong, it can probably support the standard model. So what are we really looking at when we look at this landing strut here? There's an inner peg which slots into the top right there. That is sleeved, which is then itself sleeved. It's drilled 2 holes through, but not to the inner sleeve. There's another, essentially a sleeve going on, which is just a bunch of wrapped coil. I should have some wire about that thick. Then there's the cross brace there in the middle, which is essentially just another tube at right angles to the one below it. So I've got an idea for how I'm going to do that. It should be no problem, but it may not be. It should be as strong as this is at least. The model shouldn't get a lot of jostling, but you never really know. However, the way I build it, it should be relatively easy to fix. So in speaking to all the sleeving going on, I've got some sleeved aluminum and some sleeved brass. The aluminum, while sleeved, is certainly stronger than a single tube of it. However, it still does have a fair amount of flex, whereas the brass is freaking solid. The good side to the aluminum is that you don't have to paint it. It's already done. Downside to the brass, you gotta paint it, you gotta clean it up, though I really do love the way this texture and rusting looks right now. It's really gorgeous. Now, as to why I have these 2 tubes here. This tube fits into this slot really nice and easy, but it's loose. This tube barely fits into this slot, but it's exceptionally tight and really doesn't want to go. So if I go with this tube, I can get 1 wire through each, which means 3 legs can have 1 wire, which would be a common ground, and then 2 channels of information, the sequencer and the engine and the rest of the ship. If I widen this hole just a little so that this can fit in, then I can get 2 wires per leg, which is 6. If I'm still only got 1 common ground, that leaves 5 channels of information. The engine sequencer, main onboard lights, RGB freezer tubes for 3, the circuit wall computer, or the circuit board computer wall, whatever you want to call it, that is often off. That would be 4, which would leave me a 5th channel somewhere of lights going on or off. Maybe the landing well lights, that could be a nice touch. Regardless, I will be able to use all that information, so it looks like what I really have to do is drill those holes just slightly bigger. So this is going to be my inner tube, and what happens to this is that it gets bent to this degree right there. Let's take a look at this one. How I'm going to do that exactly, I don't know yet, but it will be done. This outer sleeve will also have to be cut at maybe a 45-degree angle. Whatever it happens to be, I have to get a protractor out and figure it out. Then over at this end, that's going to have a cut as well with a bent inner tube, which is actually this one, I think, right there. However, these feet are keyed, which means I'm going to have to do a little cutting to make it fit properly. Once each of those wires is coming through here, there's a foot pad that goes on the bottom here. I'll drill holes in that so each wire gets a set of holes, one on each side, front or back, left or right, whichever. The wire will be wrapped through that. Electrically conductive copper tape will be applied to those, and then that will be an outer contact point for the base. The diorama will then have two corresponding pads wherever the feet go in their circular pattern. Those will have wires going into the base, out the bottom, and to a master controlled dip switch so I can turn everything on and off individually. The only other option would be to run multiple wires down one leg or each of the legs and hide it through the back somehow. I don't know that that would really work all that well or look too good overall. So what I think I'm going to do is clean all of this up right now, and then I'll get to these legs in a little bit because I still want to think about exactly how I'm going to go about doing this. I tried making a test leg out of the aluminum and it went really well, but that's a really soft metal, so I don't think this is going to be as easy to bend. And I still have to get that protractor and get some measurements with the calipers and so on and so forth. But overall, I think I'm ready to do the legs. Once these are installed, then I won't have as many worries. But the only reason why I have not installed the legs in yet is I figured over time that those would get really stressed out and break by now 4 years later if I had applied weight to it every now and then and just stress them out over time. Anyhow, let's get some cleaning going on.